Hello guys, and welcome to another video from Time of Business. Today we'll be discussing whether it is safe to buy from Etsy or not, and also how to avoid getting scammed on Etsy. Now, if you're new to the channel and you want to grow your online business, whether it is an Etsy store, a Shopify store, a blog, a YouTube channel, this is where you need to be. So if you want to start making money online, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and also follow along. So, is Etsy safe to buy from or not? And the answer is yes. Etsy is a safe platform to buy from. Etsy has a secure payment system. It has protection for both customers and for sellers. Then you also have a review system and you can see previous feedbacks, so previous sales and how they went on. And also you have to take into consideration that Etsy has been around since 2005, meaning that at this point they have millions of buyers monthly, and they also have millions of active sellers on the platform right now. So if you are planning to make a purchase from an Etsy store, so from an Etsy seller, you can do that with confidence. Usually Etsy will side with the customer, so with the buyer, if there is a problem with the purchase. So either the item was faulty or you received something that wasn't described in the product description, so the product is not as described, and you can easily contact Etsy in order to get your money back. So have no worries, because anything that you buy from Etsy is actually covered by their buyer protection policy. You can also reach out to the seller, so to the Etsy store that you bought from, in order to get that problem solved, either to get a full refund, a partial refund, or to return the item if there was a problem with your purchase, with your item, and you can actually get things solved without Etsy stepping in. Etsy will also take the seller side if they can provide proof of the item being shipped, if it was shipped on time, if it arrived and it was delivered, and then they can also review the message system and see if the buyer actually is trying to scam the sellers. So both parties are actually covered on Etsy, and they do as best as possible in order to keep both parties protected and satisfied at the same time. So how can you avoid getting scammed on Etsy? There are 3 things that you need to take into consideration and to look at before making a purchase online on Etsy. Now, a rule that applies not only to Etsy, but to everything that you are going to buy online, especially on large marketplaces just like Etsy and eBay, you always have to buy the seller, not the product. So what that means is that after you have found the right product for you, so you have used the Etsy search or you have landed on a certain product and you like it, before actually making the purchase, you can click on the Etsy store, so to actually see the Etsy store profile, and there you can look at a few things. So the first thing that you can do is to actually check whether that Etsy store has reviews or not. And if it has, you can look at the previous reviews, so the previous orders, what do customers tell you about that store, how do the products look like, because a lot of customers, when they leave a review, they can also attach a photo of the product that they received. How well was it packaged? Are they satisfied? Was it as described? So you can easily get a feeling of the experience that other customers had in the past with this exact Etsy store. The second thing that you can do is to actually look at the entire profile. So look at the number of sales, how long have they been selling on Etsy, how many products do they have on Etsy, do they have social media, because you can go on their social media pages and actually get a feeling of that Etsy seller, so about that Etsy store, the type of products that they sell, how they package, and everything. There are a lot of legitimate Etsy sellers that have very few feedbacks. That doesn't mean that they are trying to scam you. Etsy stores can have 100 sales and just 5 or 6 feedbacks. So maybe they are just starting out and they actually need your sale and your positive review in order to get even more sales and to satisfy even more customers on Etsy. So the third thing that you want to do if you're planning to buy from Etsy is to actually sign up on Etsy, so to have an Etsy account. This way you can check out your purchase history and also use the message system in order to connect with the seller and to express your concerns or to ask the questions that you have. This way you can get more information about the product and also have a full history of everything that you have ever purchased on Etsy. So if you do these 3 things, you can easily avoid getting scammed on Etsy. Also, very important is to always leave a good feedback on a purchase that went well. So a lot of customers on Etsy usually only leave bad feedbacks. So they won't go and give a good review to a purchase that went well. They will always get mad and give a negative feedback on the orders that actually went wrong. So this way, there are more negative feedbacks than actually positive reviews on Etsy. And that is why stores with hundreds of sales actually only have 10, 20, 30 feedbacks, and some of them are bad sometimes, because not all customers take a minute of their time in order to leave a good review on Etsy and also help that Etsy store out and the next customers as well. Because your positive feedback can actually determine the next customer to have the same enjoyable experience just like you had. Also, very, very important, you have to take into consideration that Etsy sellers can make mistakes. That does not mean that they are scammers. So a lot of people can actually make a mistake. They can send you the wrong item, maybe with a defect that they did not see, or maybe something happens during transit, so during the shipping time. Now, what you can do if you have an Etsy account is to actually reach out to that seller, so to that Etsy store, and explain to them that situation, because 95% of the Etsy sellers will actually give you a refund, accept your return, so that they avoid getting a bad review or to have a dispute opened on their store. Remember that you are buying from people just like you that opened an Etsy store. You are not buying from Etsy itself, so you are not buying from a big corporation, a big entity that does everything perfect. You are buying from someone that has to do the packaging, the delivery, the creation of that product, so everything, and usually mistakes can happen. So you have to take into consideration all of that before you actually buy on Etsy and after you have purchased on Etsy as well. Now, if the Etsy seller does not reply to your messages or to your phone call or says something very fishy or is abusive, that is where you want to ask Etsy to step in and to actually get that dispute solved by them and get your funds back. Once again, you are covered by Etsy buyer's protection, so you do not have to make any worries about that, but you can always reach out to the customer before actually escalating it to Etsy. Also, one bad experience on Etsy does not account for all Etsy sellers. So if you purchase something that was bad, that wasn't as described, that doesn't mean that all Etsy sellers are scammers and they want to steal your money. Usually people, when they have a bad experience on Etsy, they believe that all the sellers on Etsy, so the entire platform, is a scam. And that is not the case. Usually a lot of Etsy sellers actually suffer from experience that some customers, maybe just like you, had, and people are reluctant to purchase from Etsy once again because they had that bad experience. So once again, make sure to do your due diligence, use the 3 methods in order to protect yourself from Etsy scammers. And also, if something bad were to happen, make sure to first reach out to the seller in order to get that problem solved, and only then contact Etsy, because once again, you are covered by Etsy. So guys, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed and you can now go and purchase without any fear on Etsy. Also, if you want to see more videos on Etsy frequently asked questions, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also check the playlist right here because you can find a lot of information. If you want to grow on Etsy, subscribe for more.